Welcome to part 3 of this Football Manager 2018 experiment where we're trying to see if Egypt can win the World Cup. If you haven't watched parts 1 and 2 yet, please go and check them out first. We holidayed up until the 2030 World Cup, and although there was some glimmer of hope in those years, they didn't manage to win the World Cup. They didn't get close to winning a World Cup, to be honest. But in this part 3, I'm going to holiday quite a few World Cups, give Egypt the opportunity to prove themselves and go on to glory. Hopefully, anyway. As you may remember, at the end of part 2, I did improve all the youth facilities and training facilities at the Egyptian Premier League clubs to try and boost the chances of producing really good players and them getting to a much higher standard. The only thing holding them back probably is the fact that there won't be amazing coaches at these clubs. It would take forever for me to edit all the coaches to be top quality coaches, and then inevitably they'd go off to Europe anyway, so there'd be no point doing that. But hopefully these players will get to a certain level and then move to Europe quickly and be developed by the top European clubs. We've seen it done on previous experiments back on FM16. Remember, the Nordic experiment was particularly successful, with many World Cups being won by the Nordic nations. So I see no reason that Egypt can't improve and be better on this. We'll see how it goes, I suppose. I've holidayed until the 2034, end of the 2034 World Cup. It does look like a much weaker team this time around. Only that the best player has 138 current ability, but he is only 21, so there's some hope of developing into a decent player. The top player in terms of potential ability got nowhere near that really, was 32-year-old Rafael, who plays for Copenhagen. So it doesn't look particularly amazing for future years. We'll have to see how they got on at this World Cup in a second. I'm just looking at the youth teams though to see if there's any potential stars. Now there's one, Ayman Shorki, a 16-year-old striker who has 173 current ability and plays for Al Raja in the Egyptian second division, in fact. So hopefully he'll get a move to the top division, otherwise he might not develop as well as we would hope. I'll keep an eye on him then. But as you can see, England won the most recent World Cup final. Let's go to the group stages to see how Egypt got on. Did they even qualify, in fact? Did they qualify for this World Cup? I'm not sure they did. I might have they gone back? Let's just check. Competitions, World Cup. No, they didn't even qualify for the 2034 World Cup. So that is poor. They've qualified for 3 out of the last 5 World Cups, but they need to be improving every year and getting to at least getting to the World Cup. But they were unsuccessful this time around. Looks like Algeria qualified instead of them. African nations, have they managed to win that? No, they finished runners-up in 2031, but in 2033 they didn't even finish in the top 3 places. So they need to buck up their ideas. Algeria, Morocco, they seem to be doing particularly well, even though I haven't done anything to them. I've holidayed through to the 2038 World Cup then. Let's just get on with this. They didn't qualify for the last one. There's no point looking at Egypt in huge amounts of detail. But this time around, Brazil managed to win the World Cup, beating Croatia in the final, and hopefully Egypt qualified. Looks like Scotland had a particularly good World Cup. They've got 2 of the 3 top goal scorers there. But let's go down. They finished bottom of their group, -5 goal difference. In a group consisting of Switzerland, USA and Australia, they need to be getting out of that group. I mean, they're decent teams, but they're not amazing. And Egypt need to be getting better than that. They've been as high as 7th in the world rankings in recent years before the last World Cup. But they get to a point and then they just drop off completely. Shorki is their top player, by the way. He's moved to Al Ahly, the Egyptian champions. They've just won everything, haven't they? Moved for a free. And he's certainly scoring goals at club level, scoring goals at international level. 37 goals in 45 games at the age of 20. That is rather special. This is the manager, Ahmed Fahim, who is all right. I mean, that's another problem. We don't have the best manager in the world in charge of Egypt. Perhaps we could put someone in charge. But I would hope that over time, as they get better, they'd attract better managers. But it doesn't seem to be happening that way. You can see a lot of the top players are actually playing for Al Ahly in Egypt. You kind of feel like the chemistry between the players will be good, but at the same time they're not improving to the level where they're moving to Europe. This is one player that did move to Europe, Ayman Adel. He's got 135 caps for his country now. And he's been in England since 2033. But that was, I suppose, he was, 25, 26 when he actually moved? So he needs to be moving earlier than that to actually turn into a decent player. Current ability-wise, Shorki's on 144. He's only 20, so he could still potentially reach that 173. But I think he needs to move. I can't see him getting all the way up to where the promised land if he stays at Al Ahly? Surely not. Who finished first every single year in the Egyptian Premier League. It's pretty boring, really, as you can see there. Wadi Degla are the second best team. Perhaps they'll be able to push forwards and get a first place finish at some point. They've got 3-star reputation, so I think that's improved. Al Ahly, still 4-star reputation. African Champions League winners as well. They've managed to win the most recent one. But the Moroccan team seems to be dominating in more recent years, in fact. Someone did ask about the World Club Championship. I presume they haven't managed to win it. They were runners-up in 2031, and also down here, in fact. They've been runners-up 3 times, but they haven't managed to beat... No, wait! I've just noticed they have actually managed to win it. They managed to win it in 2026 and 2029. So that's some sort of Egyptian dominance, I guess, on the world scene. I know the World Club Championship isn't exactly seen as an incredible tournament, but I think around the world it's probably more loved than in Europe. Like if a Brazilian team wins this competition, they do seem to really celebrate it big time. But when a European team wins it, it's just like, well, they were expected to win it, so it's nothing special. But if an Egyptian team was to win this, that would be amazing scenes, I'm sure, in Egypt. So they've managed to win it twice. They finished runners-up 3 times, and they've also finished third a few times as well. So well done to Al Ahly for that. That's doing Egypt proud, I'm sure. Now, a few people have asked about the save file for this. I've put the save file for the first season, so before anything started, in the description below. So you can play on from that point, either manage an Egyptian team, or manage Egypt yourself, or possibly just holiday into the future to see what happens in your save. I'm sure it'll be very different. You might see Egypt win the World Cup. So if anyone does see Egypt win the World Cup, then let me know, please. Because we might not see it here. Let's hope we do. I think I'll holiday 3 more World Cups, because that's quite a long way into the future. 2050. If you want me to go further than that, let's say 300 likes on this video, and I will go, another 20 years into the future, I suppose. But we might see them win it in the next 3 World Cups. So we'll see, because they are 8th in the world rankings at the end of the 2042 World Cup. So there's a possibility they've done well here. They've been 8th or 9th for quite a long time, since last year. And Shawky has moved to PSG. He's got 84 goals in 95 games for Egypt by the age of 24. That is incredible. Really quite incredible. He actually moved to Benfica first, though, back in 2039-40 season. So he got his move to Egypt, out of Egypt. Sorry, what a bargain. I mean, Al Ahly, they're being ripped off here, but I suppose that's a lot of money for them. But at Benfica, he had a good time, in fact, before moving to PSG last year. Only got 10 goals. He didn't play every game, though, so 10 goals in 23 starts and 1 sub appearance. That's a pretty good record, I think. And I think he's going to be the star for Egypt for many years to come. He's already a star. He must be... is he record goal scorer already? No, it's Dawada. Remember Dawada? The first wonder kid to come through. They've got 92 goals for his country. He's off the game now. Most caps. Where does it say most caps? Most cap players, Ahmed Hassan. 184 caps for his country. But you can see... Shawky beating him if he keeps playing. Samir is the second best player, plays for Benfica. 41 goals in 45 games. They're producing some good strikers here. Hassan Samir, he actually moved to Celtic for £4 million before moving to Benfica. He looks like a star as well. And El Said, another 21. They've produced a golden generation at last. 8.5 million to PSG. Let's just have a quick look at the top players then. So we've got Khalifa is the best player. He's 21 years old, attacking midfielder. Playing for Schalke, he moved for £9 million. He's world class, really. Hassan Samir, who we already had a look at, the Benfica guy. Said and Shawky, who's the top goal scorer, actually is slightly worse current ability wise than these guys. But he is a bit older, so that's why he's got more caps. He is actually the second most capped player for Egypt in the squad, despite only being 24 years old. This chap has 146 caps. He's the goalkeeper. And he's not really up to the level we require. In fact, he's the 3rd best goalkeeper in the team now. Ramsey. See, look, they're producing good players now. There's lots of potential here. Ramsey's got 160 potential. There's a guy with 190 potential. Wow. He could... that's a possible Ballon d'Or winning player. He's 18 years old. 3 caps for his country already. Plays for Al Ahly. He's moved from El Baladeya in the 2nd division. So it's not all the players are coming through Al Ahly. They're often buying the best players, but they're not starting at that club specifically. But wow, he has got the potential to be an incredible player here. Under 23s, There's a few decent looking players in there, but I suppose the best players, you know, Ala Warder, it won't be long before he's in the first team, I'm sure, playing for Zamalek. And he's another one that could turn into a very good player. Anyway, let's have a look at the World Cup to see how they got on. I just love looking at the players produced. Brazil have won a second World Cup final in a row, beating Germany on penalties. But let's look at the group stage. They've managed to qualify top of their group. They didn't lose a single game. They won 2, drawn 1. They beat Serbia 2-1 and Portugal 3-1. That's weird. Why is it showing... What's happened here? Why is it showing a win against Serbia when Serbia aren't in their group? Serbia's down here. That's just a weird bug, I suppose. So they got through to the second round where they beat Serbia 2-1. Oh, this is why it's showing that. They beat Serbia 2-1 in the second round. Hassan Samir and Abu Mosalem with the goals. We've looked at Samir already. This is Ibrahim Abu Mosalem. Sorry if I'm murdering the pronunciations. 20 goals in 41 caps. He's another striker. They've produced some good strikers here, haven't they? And then, so they've gone through to the quarterfinals along with Colombia, Brazil, Germany, Norway, Argentina, Uruguay and Italy. Quarterfinal stage then. Unlucky. They lost on penalties against eventual finalist Germany. That's really unlucky. El Said with the miss. He's the second or third best player in Egypt. Hassan Samir with a late goal to take it to extra time. Really unlucky for Egypt because it could have gone either way. They could have been in the semi-final and then who knows what could have happened after that point. Because it's anyone's game really, isn't it? In the semi-finals, anything can happen. But Brazil ended up winning on penalties in the end. So Egypt could have won this. I mean, they drew 1-1 against Germany, who drew against Brazil 1-1. They're close. And perhaps the next World Cup will be when all the golden generation are at the correct level to really turn into a good team. Let's just have a look at the Egyptian Premier League. It's pretty much the same. Al Ahly dominating. Tenta finishing runners-up this season. Insecure finances don't look particularly amazing, but will it be 2046 that we finally see Egypt win the World Cup? African Cup of Nations, Egypt still haven't won it. They were runners-up in 2041 against Ivory Coast. Surely they're going to win it at some point. They have to. The Chan, I know what the Chan is. Thank you to everyone that's told me. This is a competition for players that play within Africa, so I don't think it's really seen as an amazing tournament because people are more focusing on the African Cup of Nations, and there's a lot of pride when an African player moves to a European club, I guess. But this is interesting nonetheless that Egypt haven't won it since 2026, despite having a lot of players playing for Al Ahly. You'd have thought they'd do well at this competition, but it seems to be Morocco, Tunisia, Cameroon done particularly well in recent years. Well, we were hoping 2046 would be the year, but it's not. France beat Switzerland 3-0 in the 2046 World Cup held in South Africa. So it was actually held in an African nation, but not held in Egypt. I don't think we've seen it held in Egypt. I've not missed it, have I? No. This was the African World Cup, so they chose South Africa over Egypt, I guess. And in the group stages, how did they get on? I mean, where are they? Did they not qualify? That's ridiculous. Have they not qualified for the 2046 World Cup despite that golden generation of players? That is a travesty. Oh, there they are. Panic over, Paul. Panic over. They managed to qualify and they got through their group stage, finishing with 6 points, 2 wins. They beat Colombia and Australia before losing against Switzerland. We've also given away that they've lost against France, so I suppose that was in the second round. So that's a bit unlucky that they had to face France, the winners, the eventual winners, and they lost 3-0. And it was in the second round. I mean, that's unlucky. They could have got through to the semi-final and lost against France, and that would have been fine. But to go out in the second round is a bit of a blow. I mean, France must be incredibly powerful. Let's just compare them. They're first in the world rankings, and look at all of those players that are world class. You know, that's insane levels. It just shows the difference between them. Well, let's look at Egypt then to see. I mean, 29 shots to 8 shots as well. Current ability-wise, Khalifa has got 182. So they've got some good players here, but there's not as many as France. Certainly not as many. Top goal scorer. I mean, sure, look at him. 126 goals in 153 games now for him. He's still only 28 years old, playing for PSG still, and he's, you know, a main man for them. But he's actually certainly not the best striker. We've got Samir here. We've got Khalifa who can play up front. We've got Mosalem who can also play up front. So they've got loads of strikers. Khalifa plays for Manchester United now, so he's the best Egyptian. He's the best Egyptian we've produced. He's got 25 goals in 97 games for Egypt. He's really an attacking midfielder, isn't he, as you can see there. Moved to Manchester United for £79 million. He is a real star. Next best player is Hassan Samir. 101 caps, 79 goals for his country. That partnership with Samir and Shorky up front must be insane. He's now moved to Monaco for £43.5 million. I mean, some of these players, they're probably winning Champions League titles, and Egyptians will be going wild supporting these guys. There's not just Mo Salah to support anymore. There's all these players to now get behind, and I'm sure they're having a fine old time following the careers of these players. Producing good defenders as well, Farouk. So, really unlucky to have to face France in that 2046 second round of the World Cup. Next time round, they're all going to be getting towards 30, but perhaps even more close. I mean, I suppose 28 to 30 is when you're in your prime, so there's still quite a young team if you look at it. There's a few elderly players in their 30s, but there's still lots of players between 22 to 26. So by the time the next World Cup comes around, some of them will be coming towards the end of their prime, but some of them will be in their prime. So high hopes, I think. I mean, there's a 22-year-old with 190 potential ability here, Abdel Aziz, playing for Southampton. So is he the guy that we looked at before? It might be. Yeah, it is in fact. So he's got to 161 current ability. I don't think he'll get to 190. In the under 23s, there isn't really anyone. Under 20s, 158 current ability is the best player. They're relying on this generation of players, aren't they? They have to do something at the next World Cup, or that's it, I think. I'm not sure. I mean, can they produce another golden generation? We'll have to see. So we've holidayed through until July 2050, the end of another World Cup. I kind of think they probably haven't won it, just by looking at this screen. They were 6th in the world rankings and then dropped off to 10th. That kind of indicates that they didn't do as well at the World Cup as they would have hoped, which is a shame because I feel like this is the last year that this golden generation has the opportunity to win it, and next time around they're just going to be a bit too old. I mean, Hassan Samir, 119 goals in 59 games for his country, now moved to Spurs on a free, and 19 finishing. What a player. But let's have a look then at the World Cup. I suspect they haven't won it. Argentina have won it. It said hold as Argentina there when I had a look. They beat Turkey in the final. So we're seeing some unusual finalists, Switzerland and Turkey, and I've not done anything to them. We've done a lot to Egypt and they haven't managed to get to that final. I mean, knocked out in the group stage. They've gone backwards this year. 3 points. They managed to beat Costa Rica 3-2, but losses against Scotland 3-1 and Portugal 2-1. That's poor. Scotland 18th in the world rankings. They've improved steadily over the last few years, but they should have been beaten then. Portugal they were the second best team going into. Egypt had the best world ranking going into that group stage, and they've bottled it completely, haven't they? Really frustrating from Egypt. So, if you want me to holiday, let's say another 20 years into the future, like I said, 300 likes on this video, that's enough interest for me to continue this, to see if we can get Egypt to win the World Cup. They've been so close, but is this the last golden generation? Will there be another one? If there's another one, then I guess there's an opportunity for them, but it's going to be difficult to produce another golden generation. It looks like Shorky has retired, by the way, because Samir is the top goal scorer at the moment, so Shorky didn't actually go to this World Cup. How old is he? He's only 32, so 135 goals in 165 games for his country. That must be a record. We'll have a look in a second. He's been at PSG this whole time, but he decided not to go to that World Cup. Well, maybe he did go to the World Cup and then retired, but I feel like he's retired before the end of the World Cup. So the best players, you can see 177 current ability is Samir. So what happened to the guy that was at Southampton? Is he not here? Is he retired? Or I've forgotten his name. I think it was this guy, wasn't it? Aziz, actually. Yeah, it was. Southampton. He moved to Spurs on a free in the end. 90 caps, 7 goals for his country. He's a good player, but he's never got to that 190, has he? Which is a shame. Samir's pretty much reached his potential, and he's the first player to really do that. Or possibly Shorky did as well. but it's rare for the players to reach their potential. Farouk not far off. I think improving the youth facilities and training facilities of the clubs has helped more players reach their potential, because previously they were quite far off, I suppose. There's a real variety of teams in here, but Al Ahly still dominating, especially in the attacking midfield positions there, as you can see. Biggest value-wise, it is Samir. He's a top player, isn't he? Let's go to records. I just want to see. Shorky is the all-time top goal scorer. Ahmed Hassan still got the most caps, but Mustafa Khalifa from Schalke to Man United is the most expensive Egyptian player ever now. So well done to him for that. If we just look at the world rankings, in fact, go to landmarks, and then where am I clicking? I'm trying to find something. That's the World Cup history since the start of this experiment. I thought there was a way to look at world rankings by year. Ah, here we go. Highest world ranking by year. So the highest they've ever been, I think, is third in 2043, when it's kind of towards the start of that golden generation, just before a World Cup. Just a year after a World Cup, sorry. And they've been sixth the last 2 years. They need to be getting out of the World Cup groups every year to give them a chance of actually winning it. Egyptian Premier League then, it's dropped to second in the African list of competitions. It's still below the South African Soccer League, unfortunately, but they do seem to be alternating between the two. This is ridiculous. Al Ahly have won it every single year. It's why? How has this happened? They're just stupidly powerful, aren't they? Best player is this guy, Shahati, 23-year-old, and their hot prospect Ahmed Mustafa. I swear we've seen one of him already. Let's look at the most recent table then to see how dominant they actually are. 100 points. They didn't lose a single game. They drew one. That is what? They are so dominant. 102. That is insane. They won every single game in 2048-49 season. That's unbelievable. That really is. Oh dear, there's no chance of the other teams catching, is there? I mean, how are they gonna? They've been unbeaten so many years. The most league defeats they've had in one season is about 2, I think, from the last 10 years. African Champions League, they've probably won a few of them as well, but that's good. We want Egypt to be winning this tournament. They've won 5 out of the last 7 Champions Leagues. That's very impressive. And the World Club Championship, they did manage to win the 2048 World Club Championship, runners-up this year against the Brazilian team. In fact, Man United finished 3rd. That's a bit of a shock. So they are dominating world football, Al Ahly, in a way, you can argue, because they are winning the World Club Championship. And they're a 4-star reputation team. That's not bad going. Finances are only okay now. I suppose, I mean, they could sell these players for a lot more money if they really wanted to. But they're letting them go for pretty cheap. Dravkovic. I mean, they signed a Serbian who then went on to Chelsea. So they signed a really good player. They obviously attracting talent from around Europe now because of how good they're actually doing. So if I am to holiday into the future, let's have a look to see if they will have any decent players coming through. It doesn't look like it. We're going to have to holiday quite far into the future to really see another golden generation, I think. Mustafa, 158 potential, possibly could be a decent player. But they've got a bit of an ageing squad in terms of their best players now. Are there any good youngsters? I mean, possibly Shahata could be decent. Yeah, their golden generation's over, guys. Going to be difficult. However, they have started to dominate in Africa, finally. Finally, they've started to dominate. They've won 3 of the last 4 African Cup of Nations, winning in 2043, 45 and 49. So well done there. Finally managed to dominate Africa, and that's what we needed, didn't we? We needed Egypt to dominate in the African Cup of Nations before dominating in the world. They were trying it the other way around. I think that was the problem. The Under-20s Cup of Nations, they've not... Oh, they did win it in 2041 with that golden generation. They have been runners-up the last 2 years. So that's kind of encouraging, I guess, for the future. They still might be able to produce some decent players. But we'll end today's video there. Thank you for watching this experiment so far. There possibly might be a part 4. That's up to you guys entirely. There's lots more experiments planned over the next few weeks, so I hope you're looking forward to them as well. Until next time, enjoy FM18, and I'll see you very soon.